Hi, my name's Eric, welcome back to my channel. Let's talk about Kate Bush. Today, as you requested, I'm going to react to her 1985 album Hounds of Love and break down the album's lyrics. Unlike the many other albums I've reacted to on this channel, I've actually heard Hounds of Love many times. Beyond being an amazing album and probably my favorite album of the 80s, Hounds of Love is a foundational work in the art pop subgenre of pop music. Kate Bush laid the foundation for artists like Björk, Fiona Apple, Tori Amos, FKA Twigs, Joanna Newsom, Florence and the Machine, St. Vincent. I really could go on for hours about just how influential she is, especially this album. Since this is my first revisiting reaction that I've done on this channel, I'm mostly just going to be sitting back and enjoying listening to these songs that I know and love, and I'm going to pick apart some themes that I have and have not thought about before. Before I dive in, let me know in the comments down below what Kate Bush album I should react to next. Should I go back and start with her debut or continue with The Dreaming? Check the description box for a link to a list of nonprofits you can donate to. Please subscribe to be here when I post new videos every week, and hit the bell icon to be notified when my videos go live. Without further ado, track number 1 is one of the best songs of all time, Running Up That Hill, A Deal with God. Perfection. Obviously, vocally immaculate, while also being adventurous and expressive. This entire album is, I believe, self-produced, which is extremely impressive. I just love it so much, and the song, to me, is about this conception of gender that isn't just inherent, but in some way metaphysical, to the point where, spiritually, a man can never truly understand a woman, and vice versa. This is something that's taught socially, and in a way that's relevant to this song, through certain interpretations and teachings of religion. So of course Kate wants to subvert that. She wants herself and her partner to be able to see things from each other's perspectives, and maybe even more broadly, for people to be able to understand each other across these perceived gender boundaries. The subtitle of this song seems like a riff on the idea of a deal with the devil, implying, of course, that understanding someone you love is a godly, holy thing. Something I've talked about a lot on this channel is how pop musicians use an us against the world mentality to create conflict and interest in their music. Typically something along the lines of the pressures of a loveless world pushing in on their perfect ideal love. But Kate's approach here is to take these broader social forces and locate them within the relationship through these images of pain and being torn apart. The implication is that our world, our society, strictly imposes these standards that tear people apart from each other, and that manifests itself in relationships as dysfunction and as a communication breakdown and as emotional pain. But if we run up that hill, strive and work for this mutual understanding, we can access something not only unknown, but divine. Track number 2 is the title track, Hounds of Love.
It's in the trees. It's coming.
To stay
such a banger. The drums are incredible, the strings are incredible, and her vocals are just to die for. So on Running Up That Hill, Kate established that she, as a woman, had been socialized not to understand men, and that now has repercussions in her relationships with them. And I think one aspect of this lack of understanding was this underlying assumption that men are aggressors. She opened the song reassuring her partner, "Don't worry, you're not hurting me." So I feel like the title track here is about Kate growing up and needing to reconcile her view of men as aggressors with her developing attraction to them. On the song, she makes reference to two types of animals, dogs and foxes. Dog is a common expression for a man who obsessively hounds a woman, and fox is sort of a common expression for someone who is attractive, maybe seductive. So she opens the song by talking about being a child running in the night. She is new to this scary, unfamiliar world, and the hounds of love are pursuing her. She is starting to develop romantic feelings, and she is being pursued by men. Something that a lot of women have to contend with is unsolicited romantic and sexual attention from men, even as they're growing up. So you can imagine young Kate totally mystified and intimidated by men, thinking, oh no, some of them are cute, and having to grapple with these opposing feelings. Also, just as a sidebar, I realize that I'm depending on a pretty dualistic way of looking at the world, and that real life is more complicated than this, but, you know, binaries are convenient for analysis. So of course then Kate's fear of the Hounds of Love could be interpreted more as just general hesitation about pursuing her romantic desires. And then on the second verse, Kate talks about nursing this fox, and if we're still assuming that the fox refers to a man, then this is her taking on a caregiving role in the relationship and recognizing the power and responsibility that come with having someone give over their heart to her. And this adds some more nuance to this assumption of men having more power in their relationships with women, just like she suggested on the opener. So when she talks about taking her shoes off and throwing them in the lake, this is her wanting to dive in without actually fully diving in. She's still working up the courage to embrace love and the exchanges of power that accompany it. Track number 3 is The Big Sky. Okay, we've got a fade out here. This song is lyrically a bit vaguer to me, but the way that it strikes me right now is that it's about her moving on and growing up and developing more confidence in entering the world of love and not seeing it as a dark night to struggle through, but a big sky with endless possibilities. And she feels this way even when her relationship is challenging or when it's coming to an end, because she says on the chorus, "You never understood me, you never really tried," but still she is looking up at the big sky. This relationship ended probably because of that lack of understanding that we saw on Running Up That Hill, but she's still looking on to new possibilities. We also maybe get indications of this on the third verse when she says, you know, "Noah, build me an ark." She's saying, prepare for the end, not of the world, but of this relationship. This might also set up the ninth wave, which is the story of the second half of this album. And a lot of this song is about changing and staying moving. She talks about these clouds shape-shifting, and she says on the outro, rolling over like a great big cloud. She's evolving, and if you can't keep up, you'd better know how to swim, because that lake of love from the title track is now this biblical tsunami of ever-changing passions. Track number 4 is Mother Stands for Comfort.
She knows that I've been doing something wrong, but she won't mind me lying. Mother,
It's a change of pace, but still so compelling. Every moment has something to listen to and to discover, whether it be a sound effect of glass shattering or another incredible experiment that Kate does with her voice. So this song, of course, is about her mother or a mother character, but the next song, Cloudbusting, is about a father, so it'll be interesting to compare the two. On this song, Kate is out on the town going behind her parents' back, but her mother won't say anything because mother stands for comfort, mother will hide the murderer, mother will say mum. That last line is a pun, of course, with mum being both short for mother and also meaning silent. And maybe that pun captures what it means to Kate to be a mother, to do all of this emotional work and work to comfort her family in silence. To me, this brings to mind the idea of domesticity. In an archetypal patriarchal framework, a woman's work is not only internal as in the house, in the domestic sphere, but also internal as in emotional. And internally, Kate is resistant to this image of herself as prey. She says on the second verse, "It breaks the cage and fear escapes and takes possession, just like a crowd rioting inside. Make me do this, make me do that. Am I the cat that takes the bird? To her the hunted, not the hunter?" Assuming for a moment that this murder thing isn't literal, then there's this weird sort of food chain emerging where she is a cat and is pursued by dogs, but she as a cat is also a carnivore. She has been taught that the natural thing is for her to be pursued and to have power exerted over her. So when she wants to turn that around and be the person exerting the power, it feels murderous, it feels wrong. So I don't think she's problematizing the fact that this mother character is strong but silent, but rather struggling with the feeling of looking up to these women but not being like them. Track number 5 is Cloudbusting. I haven't even started playing the song and I'm already excited. I'm a nerd.
I still dream of Organon. I wake up crying. You're like my yo-yo that glows in the dark, so I bury it and forget. But every time it rains, you're here in my head. I just know that something good is gonna happen. On top of the world, looking over the edge, you could see them coming. I can't hide you from the government. Oh, God, Daddy, I won't forget. Let the sun come out. I just know that something good is gonna happen. Cloudbusting Day.
Absolutely amazing, a vocal masterclass, a storytelling masterclass, and that is how side A of the album ends. This is one of those songs where historical context is helpful, and it all unravels just from the first line where she mentions Organon. That was the home and research center of Wilhelm Reich, a psychiatrist who studied under Sigmund Freud, and boy is putting his name into Google the entrance to a rabbit hole. But, you know, the SparkNotes version is that he believed in a supernatural sexual force called orgone, and created machines called cloudbusters that were meant to extract deadly levels of orgone from the atmosphere and make rain. Eventually, he was arrested for distributing orgone energy accumulators and died in prison. And this song is from the point of view of his son Peter, with whom he would conduct experiments, look for UFOs, you know, usual dad stuff. Eventually, he was arrested for illegally distributing orgone energy accumulators and died in prison. And this song is from the point of view of his son Peter, with whom he would conduct experiments, look for UFOs, you know, usual dad stuff. So these anecdotes come from Peter's childhood. And when Kate talks about burying her yo-yo, it's literal, but it's also a metaphor for suppressing these once cherished but now painful memories of Wilhelm. But of course, we learn on the chorus that rain reminds Peter, or rather Kate, of her father, which she describes as the sun coming out. To me, this brings to mind The Big Sky, which was about resisting despair and being bold in her pursuit of love. And I also think this idea of orgone echoes Running Up That Hill, where Kate talked about accessing divine information through this intimate exchange, so I think this is the parallel. Peter tries to suppress memories of his father and his eccentric, subversive ideas about love and sex. But thinking of him brings Peter hope. Maybe in the same way, Kate feels tempted to suppress her nonconformist, non-normative ideas and feelings about love, but maybe they bring her hope too. So in that way, Cloudbusting feels not only like a counterpoint to Mother Stands for Comfort, but also an affirmation of Running Up That Hill, because by trying to connect and relate to this father, specifically through a male perspective, Kate comes closer to the fulfillment of accessing this divine knowledge. Alright, we are entering the second half of the album, and this is called The Ninth Wave, and the concept of this half of the album basically is that Kate is lost at sea. Track number 6 is And Dream of Sheep.
Little light shining, my face is all lit up, my face is all lit up. If they find me racing white horses, they'll not take me for a boy and dream of sheep. Every girl seeking craft, I can't keep my eyes open. I tune into some friendly voices, talking about stupid things. Let me be weak, let me sleep and dream of sheep. Like a poppy, heavy with seed and deeper.
The situation is Kate is out in the middle of the ocean at night, struggling to stay awake, while also kind of trying to convince herself that if she falls asleep, she'll be okay. So she says if a rescue boat or something passes her, they're not going to mistake her for a buoy and keep going, and she keeps having these moments of false hope. She says every gull a seeking craft. She's hearing birds and thinks it's the sound of someone coming to find her. And her loneliness and desperation start to put things into perspective for her. She imagines turning on the radio and listening in on some stranger's conversation, and if you have seen the movie Gravity, there's a sort of similar scene to this. And the effect is twofold. On the one hand, she is realizing how frivolous and small life is, and on the other hand is desperately yearning for that familiarity and comfort. And she ends the song by talking about poppies taking her deeper and deeper, and this works on 3 levels. First, of course, this just means that she is falling deeply asleep. Second, poppies work here because they are a source of opium, which is a depressant. And third, the word deeper makes it clear that falling asleep coincides with drowning, with certain death, which leads us right into track number 7, Under Ice.
So wide, I'm speeding past trees, silver hills, spitting snow. There's something moving under. It's me. Get out of the cold water. Someone help them.
I love it so much. It is so haunting and cinematic. Now we have entered Kate's dream state, and in her dreams, she is totally free, ice skating fast on a frozen river. And as she glides, she can hear her blades splitting the ice, which to me could represent two things. First, she could be on thin ice, as in approaching death, maybe catching hypothermia. And second, it could be her conscious self breaking through to her unconscious self, splitting this sort of icy barrier between asleep and awake. Because what's underneath the ice? It's her in the background saying, "It's me." Her conscious self is trying to send a message to her unconscious self to wake up. And this to me might even bring to mind Sigmund Freud's theory of the unconscious, which is often represented by an iceberg. So I feel like this struggle for survival could be another metaphor for this internal conflict that she's experiencing that I think we'll get more of on track number 8, Waking the Witch.
Wake up.
That one always makes me laugh.
Should make the light, but see your little lights alive.
The little light.
Can you not see that little light up there?
Chills.
Look who's here to see you.
Yes. The church bells are so haunting. Gorgeous. That song is just so cool. That was one of my early favorites listening to this album. So the song opens, of course, with all of these voices telling Kate to wake up, and some of them even mention the little light from And Dream of Sheep. And then as Kate struggles to wake up, we're launched into this state of religious paranoia, with Kate subconsciously imagining herself as a woman on trial for witchcraft. We know from the first handful of tracks that Kate in some way struggles with feeling like a transgressive woman, and so even if side B isn't explicitly related to side A, we still have that same worry coming out in the subconscious of this character who is on the verge of death. We have these Latin prayers that roughly translate first to "in the name of the Holy Ghost," as in God, and then to "God and the master of hell," as in the devil. She is torn between these two sources of salvation, good and evil. She started out the album wanting to do good. She wanted to make a deal with God to understand her partner, but now in the state of crisis, the thought crosses her mind, would I make a deal with the devil? Am I as virtuous as I like to think I am? Later, she says there's a stone around my leg, which brings to mind the way that in the Salem witch trials, and I assume other witch trials as well, one of the ways that they would try to find out if a woman was a witch was by attempting to drown her. Of course, it was a lose-lose. If you drown, then you're not a witch, but you're dead. If you don't drown, then you're a witch, in which case you're put to death. So I think a potential conclusion here is that Kate's character is realizing that if she lives, she's returning to a world where the social conditions that gave rise to something like witch trials still persist, so maybe for a woman like her, there is no salvation. Track number 9 is Watching You Without Me.
Watch the clock move the slow hand. I should have been home, but I'm not here. But I'm not here. There's a ghost in your room, just watching you.
Okay, so I think the situation here is basically Kate is a ghost in a limbo walking around the world and visiting her partner who is waiting at home, wondering when she's going to get there. The ghost in purgatory deal might make sense too because she couldn't decide between heaven and hell, so of course she'd be stuck here on Earth. So when she says, "You can't hear me," it feels like a literalization of the communication breakdown from running up that hill. This is one of the many barriers of understanding we've had on this album, of course, between genders, but also between Kate's conscious and unconscious selves on songs like Under Ice and Waking the Witch. But of course, the barrier here is again between Kate and her partner, and I think if we view this as a metaphor, then there might be a parallel between Kate's silence on this song and her mother's silence on Mother Stands for Comfort. If she's not a literal ghost, then within this metaphor, she has returned to the normal world from a trauma that has put a wall between her and her partner by rendering her silent. And while I don't think that this is explicitly gender related, it might be a useful metaphor for the way that surviving trauma can make a person feel alienated. Track 10 is Jig of Life.
Hello, old lady. I know your face so well. She says, na 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 na. You're sitting in your mirror, never, never say goodbye. To my heart, your life, let me live. She said, come on, let me live, girl. She said, it belongs to me. And your little boy and your little girl and the one hand clapping. Na 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 na, never, never, never say goodbye to my part of your life. Oh, never, 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 never let me go. I put this moment here. I put this moment here.
Can't you see where memories are kept bright, tripping underwater like a laughing girl, holding all the love that waits for you here. Where are the going water and the gone? We are of water and the holy land of water. Strand.
Such a journey, that song. So the song opens with Kate's future aged self looking her in the eyes and saying, "This is it. Are you going to choose to give up or are you going to choose to live?" And basically, old Kate says, "You owe it to me to fight for your life, or rather, our life." And so the outro is actually Kate's real life brother John popping in as yet another one of these voices, giving her encouragement to fight to wake up. He says, "Can't you see where memories are kept bright, tripping on the water like a laughing girl?" There are a lot of connections here to earlier songs, like the brightness of the memories representing hope, being a callback to Cloudbusting, and then tripping on the water can be a reference to the title track where entering water represented embracing love, but it could also be a pun on the word trip, as in drug trip. Drug imagery appeared obliquely on And Dream of Sheep, where opium signified drowning. But again, entering the water on the title track meant embracing love, so the fact that that coincides with drowning feels like it represents Kate's underlying fear that love is this intoxicant, something that is tempting but that can lead her to her doom. But John's voice says, "Come into the future, this is where the love is," and as he continues his verse, the idea of water intrudes, and he says things like, "We are of water in the holy land of water," so once again, Kate's conscious mind is coming in and reminding her, actually we're still drowning, so gotta make your choice now. Track number 11 is Hello Earth.
With just one hand held up high, I can nod you out of sight. Get out of my car, step into the night, and look up at the sky. Just look at it go.
eerie. I love that song, and it opens with one of my favorite lines, probably from this whole album. Hello, Earth, with just one hand held up high, I can blot you out of sight. On the third verse, she says, you know what? Everyone who's out on the water, you can go home. It's fine. Go to sleep, little Earth. This is her, again, just like on And Dream of Sheep, wanting to give up. Later, she mentions a birth, describing it as a cloudburst before these other voices chime in, seemingly calling her a murderer. And the murder accusation calls back not only to Mother Stands for Comfort, but also to the witch trial on Waking the Witch. But this birth might also mean the birth of Earth, as in Genesis. Genesis biblically is also the origin of man and woman, possibly suggesting that this rigid binary that has plagued Kate for much of this album has existed for as long as life has existed. So this is one final moment where she is struggling between fighting and giving up, between asserting herself and conceding to expectations. The final track, track number 12, is The Morning Fog. And that is how the album ends. Just like the light on her life jacket represented hope on And Dream of Sheep, she opens this song by talking about the light and saying, you know what, I love you better now. I realize that the light could be going to the light as in dying, but I'm going to assume that she lived. But in any case, if the light represents hope, now that she's gone through this experience, she feels closer to that hope. She's returned to the world with this new love of life. She describes the morning fog as sweet. She wants to kiss the ground and tell all of her loved ones that she loves them. And something significant is that she says that she's falling, which to me brings to mind drowning. At the end of Waking the Witch, Kate's brothers seem to draw a parallel between a susceptibility to love and the act of drowning, implying that the falling in love was a sort of self-sacrifice or danger. But now it seems like to Kate that just means letting go, loosening up, and embracing life and enjoying love. From the beginning of the album, she was resistant to being characterized as prey. She wanted to be in control, which made her feel like she was betraying the comforting, maternal parts of herself. But really, in a hero's journey sort of way, she has gone on this odyssey and come back changed. She has faced death, the ultimate type of vulnerability, and can let the fear of falling go, allowing her to celebrate life and embrace love. Overall, I love this album so much. If I tried to choose a handful of favorites, I would just end up choosing most of the album, so I'm going to say my favorite song on this album is Running Up That Hill. Not a surprising choice, I'm sure. On prior listens, I hadn't really considered this sort of tenuous connection between Sigmund Freud and this struggle between Kate's conscious and unconscious, but I would be really interested to dive into that a bit more and hear your thoughts about that too. And thank you to all of you who recommended that I listen to this album, or rather listen to it again. I've never done a revisiting reaction before, so if there are other albums that I have said that I wouldn't react to because I've heard them before, maybe I could do something like this. There are artists like Björk who I've seen a lot of requests for, whose entire discographies I've listened to, so I don't know if a first reaction would be in order, but maybe something like this could be fun. So let me know in the comments down below what music I should react to next, whether I've heard it before or not. Check the description box for that donation link. Please subscribe to be here when I post new videos every week. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you are staying safe and healthy, and until next time, that's it.